When you think about a college education, some specific images come to mind. Taking notes, listening to lectures, conducting experiments and labs, internships where students apply their knowledge and skills in a real-world setting. And certainly all of these are true. But we know that students learn and develop in many other ways. Extracurricular activities, leadership opportunities, and community service are equally important elements of a complete four-year college experience. At the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, we encourage our students to be just as active outside their classrooms as they are inside, because we know the importance of experiential learning and personal development opportunities. I'm Chuck Cantrell, and this is Metro Campus, the UTC Report. Today we're talking about the importance of student leadership and student engagement. So come back from Metro Campus, the UTC Report. Back to Metro Campus, the UTC Report. I'm Chuck Cantrell. Successful college students are driven and career-minded. They must balance the demands of challenging coursework, outside activities, and social lives. Many hold down jobs to help pay tuition and expenses. And then there are the extracurricular activities where students not only meet friends and explore personal interest, they also have opportunities to develop leadership skills, to learn to work in groups, to organize activities, to offer ideas, and see projects through to completion. All very important skills sought by employers. Student government, service organizations, major related clubs, and fraternities and sororities all offer opportunities for learning and growth. Our guest today is a tremendous example of a student who has taken advantage of the opportunities presented to him and has gone the extra mile to create new opportunities for himself. Robert Fisher is a Brock Scholar and member of the university's honors program at UTC, where he's majoring in political science. He's in his second term as Student Government Association President. Robert has earned a Truman Fellowship. He was selected to be Presidential Fellow at the Center for the Presidency in Congress. He was appointed by Governor Bill Haslam to serve as the student representative to the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, and just recently he was announced as a 2015 Rhodes Scholar, the most prestigious award made to students around the world. In a little bit of his spare time, he serves as co-chair of Chattanooga Mayor Andy Burke's Chattanooga Forward Initiative for Downtown Revitalization. I am a huge, huge fan of this young man and so proud for the way he represents not only himself and his family, but certainly also his campus. Robert, thank you so much for being here on Metro Campus today. I want to ask you about the moment when you found out you had won the Rhodes, because that's sort of fresh right now. Yeah. What was it like?
Kind of this amazing rush of energy that, in fact, you find out the same day that you interview if you've been awarded the scholarship or not. So. I just had finished interviews, really, maybe a 30-minute gap between finishing the last interview and then going into the judge's room to hear the announcement. And I mean, this kind of amazing rush of energy. I'm sure my face was red. And just the woman who announced the lead judge, she kept talking after she said my name, but I'm sure I didn't hear anything she said after that. But it's just an amazing, amazing feeling. Some of it's awe, some of it's kind of disbelief, but I mean, really just a phenomenal feeling.
We're going to talk more about the Rhodes, but I want to go back and talk a little bit broadly right now. When you started at UTC, did you have any sort of roadway or path that you hoped to achieve? I mean, certainly you probably didn't think, I'm going to be a Rhodes Scholar, so I'm going to go to UTC. I mean, how did it all come to be? How did the Robert Fisher that we see today come to be? I mean, was it planned, or did you just find these opportunities?
Yes, I think there's kind of two questions in there. So first, when I got to college, did I have a plan? Yes. I had a four-year plan. One was academic and one was extracurricular. I worked out the four-year plan with my advisor in the honors program, Joni Somparak, and then I worked out my kind of extracurricular plan by myself. So I said, you know, by sophomore year, I would like to be in this club, leading in this capacity. By junior year, I want to do this. And so I outpaced that plan by my junior year, so I had to start thinking about what senior year would look like. But I mean, I really did. I came with a plan of action, really, of opportunities, places, people I wanted to meet, things that I wanted to do, types of grades that I wanted to have in certain courses. And then, you know, that was just me in college. However, I mean, there was so much more. I had really great preparation in high school. I had phenomenal teachers at Ross View High School. I had an amazing, amazing speech and debate coach, Lee Ellen Beach, who really, through her coursework and through my time as a debater, I think really prepared me for the rigors of college and also kind of put me on this pathway towards being successful in a lot of capacities.
How did you come to choose UTC?
Really, it was the honors program. So the Brock Scholars program, I heard about it through a friend and some other folks who were applying. Looked into it, decided to just at least give it a chance, right? Not knowing if I was going to get in or not. But fortunately, I was invited for an interview, came to campus, fell in love with campus, fell in love with the community of the program. And I got accepted, thankfully. And once I was accepted, I kind of knew this is where I wanted to go.
Let's talk a little bit about the notion of student leadership, student engagement. You're in a position now to talk to and mentor a lot of incoming freshmen, younger college students. What do you tell them about why it's important to do things besides just go to class?
I think there's two reasons. I mean, one's very practical, right? So you're not going to learn everything you need to know in the context of the classroom. You'll learn a lot of foundational skills, a lot of theoretical concepts, but you have to be able to apply that in some capacity. So that just lends itself to the reason why you might get involved outside of the classroom is that you want to be able to apply those skills. It's just great professional competencies you'll want. It makes you employable, it makes you marketable. But I think the second piece, and perhaps the more valuable piece, is that when you blend that community and classroom, and you find opportunities to learn not only in the context of the classroom, but learn in an applied setting, I think it just adds value to who you are. And I think it helps you understand who you are in your relationship to other people and to different groups, and it helps you think about ideas. And it's an entirely different way where you can see it from two vantage points. You can see it in what I always say is policy and practice. I'm a political science major. So what is the policy? How do we conceptualize the policy? And then how does it look in practice, right? And having the ability to see both of those things is just so helpful. And I think it applies to more than just your major. It's like, how do you navigate relationships? And so it's so important to be involved. I think, one, for that professional reason, but two, just I think it adds value to who you are.
What do you say to the students who say, I just don't have time? I'm busy, I've got classes, I've got to work. What do you say to them?
I mean, for students who are folks who are working full time, I think it's just really great to think about how what you learn in the classroom applies to your job. You know, if you were a psychology major and you were in a work environment that wasn't particularly conducive to promoting success, I mean, psychologically, you can assess that, you can analyze that and say, what can we do in the way of work culture to promote a more productive and happy psychology for our employees? I think it's about finding opportunities to bridge that gap, even in the most unlikely places. And I think that's incumbent upon your professors and the university culture and environment to say, every space you're in is an opportunity for learning. Let's figure out how we can blur those lines.
I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation about student leadership at UTC. Welcome back to Metro Campus, the UTC Report. I'm Chuck Cantrell. We're discussing student leadership at UTC with our guest, Robert Fisher. I'm going to want to start off this new segment with a conversation about how you advocate for higher education students across the state, but particularly at UTC. What do you see your role as the student government president? What is your function for the student body?
Yeah, by and large, my responsibility is to be a liaison, really, between the faculty and administration and the student body. Sometimes being a liaison means being an advocate for students in a particular space. There are issues where we just can't find opportunities for agreement between administrators and students. Most often I side with students and say, let's figure out how can we bridge that gap and bridge that divide. But there are also times where I have to kind of serve as a conduit and say, well, the administration would like to do this. Student body, what do you think about that? And help people kind of see the benefit and ideas touted by the administration. But I think really by and large, it's just to be an advocate, to be a liaison and be an advocate, and to figure out what issues matter most to students and then relay those to the powers that be.
And what do you think those issues are that really matter to students?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. I think most importantly, students are looking for opportunities really to have a very meaningful educational experience. And that means to have a classroom environment that is active and engaged, to graduate with the appropriate professional competencies, to be able to find job opportunities that are also meaningful. And I also think it's just about creating incredible friendships and relationships that may have an impact on your career, but just may have an impact on who you are. And so I think we're looking for opportunities at our university in particular to not only just graduate, but graduate with some really great professional competencies and some really great relationships.
I know that I want to talk about the THEC, but I want to, you talk about these relationships and these opportunities, and you certainly have found some and made some while you're at UTC. Talk to me a little bit about what you've done in the Chattanooga community, because you're not from Chattanooga, but now you seem very much of Chattanooga, and I think you would agree with that. So how did you become so involved in the community as a student?
I think it's another thing that you kind of find serving as SGA president. Soon enough, individuals in the community want to know, how can we engage students, right? How can we find opportunities for students to engage? And me being that advocate for the student body, very often I'm at different meetings, just by the notion of serving in this capacity. And then you talk to people, you build relationships, and then the next thing you know, you're asked to serve on this committee in the community instead of the university. And so for me, that's kind of how it started, just serving as SGA president and speaking up on behalf of students, and then it snowballed into other opportunities.
So let's talk downtown revitalization just a little bit. What do you see as the opportunities that exist for downtown Chattanooga, and then also a little bit about how to get UTC a little more connected with that?
So I think downtown is in a pretty pivotal point right now. We're trying to identify, and I say we, the Chattanooga community, we're trying to identify, how do we build a downtown that's attractive, how do we build a downtown that is vibrant, but how do we also build a downtown that's inclusive? That every Chattanoogan, no matter where you live, whether you're Lookout Mountain, Signal Mountain, or you're in the city, how can this space be a place for you as well, regardless of income, right? And I think that's a very difficult challenge. I think UTC and UTC students can play a role in identifying that solution. How can we work together to use our resources with faculty and staff, the intellect of our students, my peers, to figure out, okay, we're trying to make a downtown that's unlike other downtowns across the country. How do we do that?
Yeah. So let's now go to the sort of like the state level. As the student representative or student commissioner, I guess, on THEC, what are the issues that you think are maybe a little more universal, not necessarily UTC issues, but higher education student issues in general? And I've got to think that cost is one of them.
So I would say, if we're thinking about major issues for higher education in Tennessee right now, access, affordability, quality. When we talk about access, right? What types of individuals have access to higher education? Now that could be associated with cost, but it could also be associated with parental education attainment. It could be associated with different forms of K through 12 education. And then again, when we move into affordability, how much does college actually cost? How much do students have to pay? And then the question of quality. Not only are you attending, not only can you attend, but are you graduating in a timely manner? Are you receiving a really quality education? And so I think, in that quality piece, retention and student success is really, really important. And I might just add, if there was a fourth issue, I would have to say probably institutional diversity. Identifying how do we close gaps between majority student groups and minority student groups in education attainment. And that problem is across the country, but how do we bridge that divide? Not only how do we graduate students, but how do we achieve parity among ethnic groups and graduation rates as well?
Yeah. So as you sort of look at higher education in Tennessee, what are your thoughts? How are we doing?
So the governor's laid out a very aggressive plan with the Tennessee Promise. We're thinking about how do we shift the total number of adults in Tennessee with higher education degrees from where we are today, which is roughly 37%, to 55% in 2025. So that's aggressive. And I think to have that aggressive goal is important. Then to see the investment through the Tennessee Promise in the community college sector is really, really important. So now that students have the opportunity to go to community college at little to no cost. The next step really is identifying how do we begin to reverse the trend on state investment in higher education. We've noted over the last, let's just say 20 years, there's been a rapid decline in state investment in higher education, particularly in this kind of 4-year environment. So how do we provide robust services in the way of state investment in higher education? And I think the governor is certainly talking about that. He was on a show today at the White House talking about it's opportunity for college and what can we do and how do we work across systems, not just in the state of Tennessee, but across the country,
right,
to increase funding and think of ways to be cost effective and efficient.
I tell you, we're going to take another break. When we come back, I want to talk about meeting the president
Great.
And Robert's plans for the future. When we're back, we'll continue our conversation about student leadership at UTC. Hello, welcome back to our Metro Campus. I'm Chuck Cantrell. Robert, I want to get back to a little bit more personal stuff for your experiences at UTC and abroad, and ask about the time when you were the presidential fellow. Tell us how that came to be, and then what exactly was that experience?
So there's a center in DC called the Center for the Study of the Presidency in Congress. Every year UTC will kind of through a competitive selection process, will select a student to go. And so I was able to go and have just a phenomenal time. It's a non-resident fellowship, so I did a lot of my research on campus, but twice a year I would go to DC to the center and talk to fellows across the country. So there were different fellows from universities all over the country. I want to say about 75. And so we all talked about our thoughts on the presidency and our thoughts on different policies and the role the Congress might play in that. I talked about education in particular and the role of Presidents Bush and Obama and kind of developing this 21st century education model in the K through 12 arena. So.
And you had a chance to meet President Obama?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Yeah, so on another trip to DC through a different program, I was able to, I'm a part of a group called the Institute for Responsible Citizenship, and I was able to get into that program, and in the summer I worked at the Center for American Progress. And I just had this kind of, it's hard to explain because there really was no rhyme or reason as to why I was picked. But I was at the White House for a press event. They said, come to the Roosevelt Room. And then, maybe 20 minutes later, after just kind of having casual discussion with some White House staffers, in walks the president.
So you didn't even know that the group was going to meet the president?
No, we had no clue. We had moments notice, I think, before they told us, okay, you're going into the Roosevelt Room and you will meet the president this afternoon. And so, all of us are in the room just like really excited and just beaming. And there were students from all over the place representing different kind of millennial advocacy groups. We were talking a lot about higher education, student loan debt in particular. The summer 2013 was all about, excuse me, student debt. And so met the president. He made this big joke. We all laughed. People think I made him laugh. He made himself laugh.
There's a great picture of you and him together. I think you're shaking hands, and I mean, so who was taking the pictures? Was that a White House staffer? Or?
Yeah,
okay.
And very candid moment. He's very down to earth. He cracked jokes on us, and we just had a great time, and just a phenomenal experience. And it just happened out of nowhere, really.
That's great. It's a wonderful picture, and we at UTC use it quite a bit. We're proud of you for meeting the president and everything you've done. Let me ask you a little bit about the Rhodes Scholarship now. So, what will you do with it? How are you going to use it?
So, of course, the Rhodes Scholarship provides scholarship for study at Oxford University, University of Oxford. So I'm so excited about studying there. And I think my program right now is comparative social policy. So I have an interest really at the intersection of race and higher education and have kind of a professional interest in higher education administration. So for me, this is just an incredible opportunity to study different education systems all over the world at one of the most international campuses in the world, and then just to be able to kind of soak up the history of Oxford and use that as a platform to be an advocate for what I consider is one of the most important challenges of our time, which is education equity, right? And I think there's no shortage of a discussion around educational opportunities and equal opportunity in general. I mean, you look to Ferguson, you look to New York, you look to any major city in the country right now, there are protests, and the discussion is how do we achieve equity and opportunity for people of all races, colors, creeds, whatever. And I think that for me, using this scholarship as an opportunity, leverage to give voice to people who otherwise may not have one, is just an incredible opportunity for me.
So do you see a career in politics, in higher ed, all the above?
All of the above, right? So for me, I think higher education administration is a professional trajectory that just makes a lot of sense for me given my interests. I think universities, particularly institutions, right, have just incredible economic power as they infuse communities with jobs opportunities, with new graduates, and then just not to mention they buy a lot of things, and so that's great. But I think for me, the important challenge is figuring out how can we leverage the power of an education institution, a university, to help a community or help communities find opportunities for equality. And so I want to do that, but I think that might lend itself also to a career in politics someday. Using that platform to run for office. But I think the great thing is that if I have a career in higher education, when we talk about ed policy, I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. I tell you what, well, that's all the time we have right now. I could have you back for another host show. That's all the time we have for discussing UTC student leadership programs. If you'd like to learn more information about that or any other topic we discuss here on Metro Campus, you can always find it by visiting UTC's website at www.utc.edu. That's all the time we have for this installment of Metro Campus. See you next month.